Chapter 17. The next day, Nikolai managed to get to his feet and limped back to the barracks. He couldn't go to the mess hall to eat, but Yuri brought him some borscht and Russian black bread. Nikolai tried to thank the guard, but Yuri waved off the gesture as though he didn't want to hear it. By Wednesday afternoon, Nikolai thought he could probably work some if he didn't have to lift anything heavy or walk too much. No one was following him around to see that he worked, but he felt that it would be some kind of statement to the warden if he could get in a few hours of work before sunset Wednesday. The week was half over, and Sabbath was looming on his weekly horizon. It would come, and when it did, he had a feeling that the warden would put him back in the box. It was a battle of wills now between him and the warden. It appeared that the warden wanted to win this standoff at all costs, and if he couldn't, he was certainly going to make it a painful experience for Nikolai. But pain or not, Nikolai also wanted to win this war that had now become one of government force versus allegiance to God. Nikolai did work some on Wednesday, and then a full day on Thursday and Friday. But now he was beginning by now he was beginning to get some real looks from the other prisoners. Everyone knew he was completely devoted to his God, but Nikolai was sure many of them had no real idea what sitting in a wooden box for 10 days at a time had to do with it. Was he a religious fanatic? A lunatic? Was he a political prisoner, just trying to make a political statement? Sooner or later, Nikolai knew he was going to get an opportunity to share his story. Sooner or later, someone would come asking, and Nikolai would get a chance to tell them why he was so devoted to serving his God. But for now, the others just watched and wondered at Nikolai's vigilant faith. And when the Sabbath day arrived, things turned out exactly as Nikolai knew they would. He was put back in the box. It amazed him that the warden was sticking to this strategy of discipline. Every time he put Nikolai in the box, Nikolai was out of commission for 10 days, and then it took at least a day for him to recover and recoup his strength. That left him only 2 days to resume work again before being put back into the box. If the warden wanted to run an efficient camp, locking Nikolai up for such lengthy periods of time wasn't working. At least not if he wanted to get any work out of Nikolai. The whole thing didn't make much sense. But then the whole strategy of the Soviet government didn't make much sense to Nikolai either. Why force a person or group of people to give up something they cherished? The whole thing was like trying to force a man to turn against his own family. But of course, the prison warden wouldn't care about that. He had no religion. He would never comprehend the strength of Nikolai's allegiance to his God and his church family. If he had, he would have never persisted in fighting against Nikolai's incredible, immovable devotion to the service of his God. And so it went, as the short summer weeks turned into the chill of autumn. Frost came in August, and then a light snow in early September. While in the box, Nikolai could not afford to sleep for very long periods of time. Every few minutes, he had to wake up to move his legs and arms so he could keep the circulation going. When the frigid days of winter came in late October, Nikolai worried. How would he stay alive? How would he manage to stay warm, all cooped up in a small box? Nikolai wasn't sure it really mattered anymore. If he persisted, he perished. If he perished, he perished. If it was time for him to lay down his life for Jesus, then he was at peace with such a fate. But just as resigned as he was to this possibility, he was just as sure that God had a plan for his life, something in store for him as God's witness, though it be in a box. It was at times like this that the scriptures became Nikolai's greatest comfort. His favorite passages were Psalms 23, 91, and 140. These wonderful chapters helped him focus on the real battle that was raging, the battle between good and evil. Yuri must have been feeling sorry for Nikolai again, because one morning when he brought the preacher his bread and water, he also brought two thick blankets. It had been an especially cold night, and the gesture warmed Nikolai's heart with gratefulness to Yuri and God. The blankets wouldn't keep him toasty, but they would take the edge off the cold winter nights. All the water in the camp was freezing over by now, but the barrels of water brought from the spring on a daily basis would freeze by morning. During the early days of winter, Pitya, the cook, would break the thick sheets of ice on top of each barrel in the mornings. But when the real temperatures of winter settled in and dropped to 0 and below, the water froze solid in a matter of hours. Pitya began having Oleg bring the barrels inside the kitchen. Because the extreme temperature, Nikolai knew he couldn't afford to let the water get chilled. If he allowed the water to start freezing, it would drop his body temperature even further when he drank it. From now on, he knew he would have to drink right away when Yuri brought him his can of water. The hours of daylight were few now, and the nights longer. Nikolai's breath made puffs of steam when he breathed, and when he pulled the blanket up around his face, a crust of frost quickly gathered. How he managed to stay warm in the ice-cold temperature he never knew. But one thing was for sure: with God, all things are possible. He was Nikolai's ever-present help in trouble.